Hello, Professor. I'm going to be going over the milestone 3 again and just kind of gonna fix some of the issues I had and showcase that they're updated to work correctly. So I'm just gonna get back into it because you already know I'm doing it for all of them. So this first one, enemy shoots at player. Explain how the code calculates where to shoot the target player. So I will go ahead and showcase within game that the enemy can actually shoot at the player. I'm gonna go ahead and lower the game volume or music. But as you can see, the enemy is coming up to me and shooting me. Um, and then they can kill me. And then they just follow and will shoot me again. So how this works within code is I have a AI controller where um, hold on, sorry, I just wanted to double check that. Uh, so I have it set here to where with a boolean, so it will check to see if if it's true that he can shoot, then shoot him. And then I also have a range variable to check to see if the player is within range, a distance to player to see how far the enemy is from the player. I have a uh, decision delay timer for the AI to determine what it can do. And then I also have the next decision time as well. So how it's set here is in the update function, the distance to player.vector3 distance transform.follow target. What this function does is whatever the variable I set for distance to player, um, it will calculate that based on the AI's position and then the player's position, which is follow target position, and then store that into a checking for distance. And then my next function here says if distance to player is less than or equal to range. So it'll check to see the distance between both of them, and then with the range variable, which whatever I set it to. So if the distance is correct and then it's less than the range variable, it will then do all the functions within it. So first things first, this thing will check to see if the rigid body, if the AI can actually see the rigid body of the player. If it does, it will then check to see if the player is within range for the can't shoot boolean, and then if so, it will then check to see if the AI actually has an equipped weapon, and then if so, it will then do the on trigger pull script here, where it will call the projectile. So let me open up my projectile script. So how this works, um, actually it will be the weapons themselves. So I'll just do rifle weapon for example. So since I have these functions within the game, each weapon has the rifle weapon script, the pistol, the shotgun, etc. And because I'm checking to see if the enemy is within range to shoot the player, um, it will then do these triggers. But first thing though, on the pawn script, um, what it's doing is if it's checking to see if the enemy has an equipped weapon here. If so, and then it will do all of these functions that are within it. So that is the enemy shoots at player. Enemy equipped weapon. Show that it can equip different types of weapons, including kinematics, shot types, etc. So as you can see, because of the pawn script, the AI and the player sharing, it will call the same function for equipped weapon and apply it to the AI as well, along with the unequipped. Same thing with the on animator IK. It will check to see if the weapon is equipped to the AI or the player, and then it will move those animations to that weapon to indicate that the AI is actually holding the weapon instead of it just floating. Same thing with unequip. It will check to see if the AI or player has a weapon even equipped. If not, then it will destroy it instead of it just floating in air. And because of that, we can call it within the AI functionality, allowing them to shoot. And also another thing with it's doing it with the pickups as well. With the pickup script, because this is set with the weapon pickups, it will check to see if the AI or player, because they both pawn, if they have the correct collider, if they collide with it. If so, pick it up, and then equip it to the current attachment point for the player or AI. So I'll go ahead and showcase that in game. I just want to lower that real quickly. So as you can see here, I have a little pistol pickup, but if the AI comes over, he'll pick it up. And then I also have the slow weapon here as well. And then I have a shotgun. As you can see, the AI actually picked up the shotgun weapon and equipped it. And then it can also shoot it intended if like. So as you can see, they're shooting, but he picked up the pistol. And the actual arms of the animator worked with the weapon, so it actually looked like the enemy was holding the weapon correctly. So that is the enemy equipped weapon. Enemy spawns over time. So I have, it's similar, or like the last one, I have not a weapon spawner, a wave spawner here, where I have 2 spawn points, where I have the size here for waves will determine how many waves of enemies will be within the game. I can set it to where there's only 1 wave, and the 3 enemies will only appear, and then if they all die, the game will end. But since I have 2 waves here, 1 wave will go with 3 enemies, and then it'll wait a certain amount of time to do the next wave. And then 6 enemies will spawn, but it will have a spawn delay between each of them, so that way it gives the player time to actually kill the AI without being overrun. So how this works is I will go ahead and showcase it, but I will update the damage to showcase a quicker route. So I will just do, let's see, 10. I'm going to adjust that really quickly. So if the AI appears, and long as I don't die, that is. Actually, I just realized I set that for me to die quickly, not for the AI. Wrong one. That was my issue. So as you can see, 1 enemy died. That one died. As you can see, the 3 enemies ended. And then in the console, it'll say next wave, so that means next wave started. Because of that, more enemies will spawn. Gonna get that health pickup here. And then I won. As you can see, the game ended. I'm not sure what the GUI is. That's a little weird issue. But the functionality works, so I'm not sure as to why that popped up. But as you saw with the wave spawner, all the enemies spawned and then waited for that. So it does work as intended. I have no issues with it. But I will showcase in my code how it works. So as I can see, I have an array with the AI controller. First, I will check to see if the enemies I am storing within this script has this. If not, it won't put that object in. And then I have a wave counter allowing me to set how many waves the game will play. A time between spawns, so get the waiting time between each spawn for enemies. I also have a list of waves and spawn points as well to see if I want to add more spawn points to the game. I can add a bit more randomness. The time between waves, so it gives the player time to get health or reload or whatever. And then we'll check to see It will check to see if there is a current wave going, and then check the index to see when this will end. And then it has a boolean to check to see if all of the enemies have spawned within the game. The enumerator here is set to where it will start the wave, and then it will check to see the time between waves for whatever I set it to. It'll wait for a couple of seconds, and then it will start the next wave and start the quarantine. The spawn wave enumerator is the spawning for the AI. First, it will put the wave counter in a list, and then if there is no player stop spawning, then it will check to see if the spawner has the AI controller script, and if the enemies have it as well. If so, it'll put it into a list, and then it will it will spawn those enemies within the spawn points at a random spot. So they're not just constantly spawning in the top of the map. They could be spawning in the bottom, the middle, it doesn't matter. Wherever I stick those spawn points, it will spawn it. And then it will check to see, it will then instantiate that enemy at that spawn point. And then it will do its functionality. And then it will then count the current wave of the game. So like say if I have 2 waves, I complete the first one, it will then subtract that number from it. So now there's only 1 wave. And then if that wave hits 0, that means the enemies have finished spawning and equals true. If not, it's false. There's still enemies spawning. And then it will then yield return new wait for seconds. We'll check to see if there's a current wave and then do the spawn points or time between spawns, allowing the enemies to get to the player and allow the player to get a few seconds before a new enemy comes out. And then just in my update function here, it will check to see if the enemies have completed their spawning, and then they will no longer spawn. If finished spawning equals false, it will then subtract that wave like I said earlier, get the current wave, and then add it. If there's no longer any enemies in the game, it will then load the next scene, letting me know I have won. So that is the wave spawner functionality and how they spawn over time. Well commented code. Within my wave script, I have a lot of comments explaining what each of these do, what the variables do, letting whoever reads this project knowing this is what this script is for, and they will be able to understand it. The pawn script as well has a bunch of comments saying what each of these do, how the weapon equips work, the unequips work, how the animator IK works. The AI controller is similar, comments saying what each of these do, the get components, the following of the player, and then checking to see if he can shoot down here, and then it will do the get following, letting the person know that he is following the player, and then calling the animator on move for the AI. Same with projectile, explaining what each of these do, rifle weapon, and then pickup as well. So those are the things that I wanted to go over within it. So that is the end.